Imagine it's 1922 and you're standing in a boardroom in Berlin. The city is humming along, streetcars are running on time, and the papers say the post-war economy is recovering. But inside this room, a man is borrowing enormous sums of German marks, millions upon millions, to buy everything he can get his hands on. He acquires tangible, physical assets aggressively: factories, coal mines, shipping lines, hotels, forest land, and steel mills. His name is Hugo Stinnes. The German press is watching this relentless debt accumulation and calling him a madman. The public assumes he's simply reckless or dangerously greedy. 18 months later, the German mark collapses entirely. A loaf of bread goes from costing 160 marks to 200 billion marks by November 1923. Workers and pensioners watch their life savings vanish in weeks. But Stinnes, his massive debts are now payable in worthless paper. He pays them off for practically nothing. The factories, the mines, the steel, those remain. He emerges from the crisis as the single most powerful industrialist in Germany. He didn't get lucky, and he didn't gamble. He looked at the math of the currency, realized the paper was dying, and converted it into substance before anyone else noticed. To understand what he did, we have to look at how people misunderstand wealth. Most people think of money and wealth as the same thing. They are completely different. Wealth is the physical thing you need: food, energy, shelter. Money is simply a claim, a piece of paper representing a promise you can exchange for real things. The entire financial system is built on the assumption those promises will be honored. The genuinely wealthy operate on a different assumption entirely. They monitor the systems that enforce those promises. They track sovereign debt ratios, watch central bank balance sheets, and measure the exact tax gap. They know exactly when the math stops working. When it becomes clear that a system's obligations are mathematically unsustainable, these individuals don't wait for the collapse. They quietly begin a massive migration of capital, moving their wealth out of financial promises and into a highly specific set of tangible assets. The first category they move into is the most historically consistent: productive agricultural land, soil that can grow food. Over the last 15 years, billionaires and sovereign wealth funds have been quietly accumulating farmland at striking rates. Bill Gates alone has acquired over 270,000 acres across the United States. Media executives and institutional investors have steadily increased their allocations to soil since the 2008 financial crisis. They buy farmland because it represents the ultimate inelastic commodity. Inelastic means that human beings require it to survive, regardless of how wildly prices fluctuate or how weak the currency gets. Farmland produces real food. It appreciates during inflation, and a central bank cannot print a single new acre of it. The industrial equivalent of farmland is private infrastructure: toll roads, shipping ports, water treatment facilities, and energy grids. Trucks still need to cross bridges, and ships still need to dock, no matter what the stock market does. Owning the physical choke points of society ensures you survive a monetary reset, while capturing the revenue streams of whatever new system takes place. The second asset class is gold. It is rarely used as a speculative trade by those with capital. Instead, 5,000 years of recorded economic history show that gold is the baseline substance money reverts to when trust in institutions evaporates. Long before the full debasement of the silver denarius in the 3rd century, Roman patricians and senators had already converted their wealth into landed estates and physical gold, successfully waiting out the collapse of the Roman currency system. Today, global central banks are hoarding gold at speeds not seen since the 1960s. In 2022 and 2023, sovereign institutions purchased over 1,000 tons of it per year. The institutions that issue the world's paper promises are mass purchasing the one monetary asset that carries zero counterparty risk. Its value does not require another institution to keep a promise. The wealthy also utilize what economists call capital flight. They use fine art and foreign jurisdictions to extract their wealth from a failing local system. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the emerging Russian oligarchs became some of the most aggressive art buyers on earth. A museum-grade painting functions as an unregistered, highly portable store of value that sits entirely outside the banking system. These masterworks are often housed in places like the free ports of Geneva or Luxembourg. These are customs-free, climate-controlled storage zones where billions in physical wealth sit quietly, untouched by government reporting requirements or tax authorities. They also diversify their borders. Long before the Greek debt crisis peaked in 2015, wealthy families had been moving their operating capital into accounts in London, Switzerland, and Germany, well ahead of the capital controls that eventually trapped the Greek middle class. A masterpiece sitting in a crate in Switzerland has no domestic bank account number. A trust in Liechtenstein cannot be frozen by a desperate local government. They exit the jurisdiction before the exits are closed. This chart visualizes global sovereign debt, over $100 trillion. When debt outpaces the economy, it creates a trap with three exits: default, austerity, or inflation. Default destroys the banking system, and austerity removes politicians. So governments almost exclusively choose financial repression, heavily utilizing inflation. They hold interest rates artificially low, letting inflation quietly erode the real value of the debt over time. It functions as a massive, invisible wealth transfer from the people safe in the currency to the people holding hard, physical assets. The ultimate cost of this mathematical reality is always paid by the same group, the middle class, the people who blindly trust the default settings of the system. Look at Argentina in 2001. The wealthy had wired dollars to Miami for years, while ordinary shopkeepers and retirees trusted the government's promise that the peso was safe. When the peg broke, their savings were instantly frozen and vaporized. In the United States after 2008, the mechanics were the same. The banks were rescued while 11 million Americans lost their homes to foreclosure. The system mechanically socializes losses for the bottom while privatizing gains for the top. Protecting yourself doesn't require billions or an offshore trust. Just stop trusting paper promises. If you understand the mathematics of debt, you can position your own resources into things that hold real scarcity. People always ask why no one warned them before a collapse. The individuals who read the math have no incentive to warn the public. They are quietly exiting paper and positioning themselves to buy what's left at a massive discount.